Hey there, and welcome to today's deep dive. Get ready to shrink down, way down to the microscopic level, because we are going to be unlocking the secrets of life's littlest machines. Cells.
That's right, cells.
Those tiny building blocks that make up every single living thing.
Every single one.
We're talking about a world more fascinating, more complex than any city built by humans.
It's true. Most people don't realize just how much is going on inside a single cell.
I know, right? And get this, there are more cells in your body right now than there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, isn't it?
Mind blown already.
Okay.
So we're dealing with a whole lot of complexity here. Where do we even begin to unpack this microscopic universe?
Well, every complex system is built from simpler parts, right? Think about it like this. You can't build a skyscraper without understanding the properties of steel, concrete, and glass.
Okay, I'm with you.
Right.
So what are the steel and concrete of a cell?
We call them macromolecules.
Macromolecules.
Essentially, they're the fundamental building blocks of all life. Think of them as the ingredients in a recipe,
Gotcha.
each with a unique flavor and purpose.
Macromolecules. Okay. I'm intrigued. Break it down for me. What are these essential ingredients that make life possible?
There are four main players you really need to know: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids.
All right, let's start with carbohydrates.
Okay.
What's their claim to fame in this microscopic metropolis?
Carbohydrates are like the instant energy shots of the cell. Think about that sugar rush you get after a donut. Have carbohydrates at work,
It's true.
providing a quick burst of fuel.
Okay, so the instant energy boost. Got it.
Yep.
But you said each macromolecule has a unique purpose. Is there more to the story with carbs?
Absolutely. They're not just about quick energy. Carbohydrates also play a vital structural role. For example, think about the sturdy cell walls that give plants their shape. Those are built from a complex carbohydrate called cellulose. No cellulose, no towering trees.
Wow, so they're like the building materials and the energy bars all rolled into one. To talk about multitasking. Now, what about lipids? Aren't those the fats we try to avoid?
That's right. But they're not all bad. Lipids are the ultimate multitaskers, far more than just dietary villains. Think long-term energy storage. When a bear hibernates through a long winter, it's relying on stored lipids to keep it going.
Oh, that makes sense. It's like nature's way of packing a high-energy lunch that lasts for months.
Precisely. And think about the blubber on a whale. That's lipids providing essential insulation in those frigid ocean depths.
Right.
They also form a protective barrier around each and every cell called the cell membrane,
Okay.
like a high-security fence controlling what comes and goes.
Okay, I'm starting to see how vital lipids are. We've got energy, insulation, protection. It's like the Swiss Army knife of macromolecules. But what about the actual workhorses of the cell, the ones getting stuff done?
That's where proteins come in. And let me tell you, they're the ultimate overachievers of the cellular world. Building and repairing tissues, transporting molecules, sending signals, you name it. Proteins are probably involved. They even act as enzymes, which are like tiny molecular machines with very specific jobs. Hold on, enzymes, those ring a bell from chemistry class, but I need a refresher. What do they actually do?
Imagine enzymes as those incredibly precise robots you see on assembly lines.
Right.
Each one has a specific task. To cut, weld, paint, you name it, enzymes are the same way. They speed up chemical reactions within the cell, ensuring that the processes of life happen at just the right pace.
So proteins are like the builders, the messengers, and the factory workers of the cell.
That's a great way to put it.
It sounds like they do it all.
They do.
Which brings us to our final macromolecule,
Right.
nucleic acids.
Right.
That name sounds a bit intimidating. What's their role?
Don't let the name fool you. Nucleic acids are like the blueprints for life itself.
Okay.
They hold the genetic code, the instructions that make you, well, you.
And the most famous nucleic acid of all is DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid.
DNA, the molecule of heredity. That's the stuff passed down from parents to offspring, right?
Exactly. DNA is like a vast library containing all the genetic information needed to build and maintain an organism.
Wow.
And it doesn't work alone. RNA, or ribonucleic acid, plays a critical role in actually putting those genetic instructions into action.
Okay, so DNA holds the master blueprints, and RNA is like the contractor. Taking those plans and making them a reality, I'm starting to see how interconnected these macromolecules really are.
And we're just getting started because The real magic happens when we look at how these macromolecules come together to form the intricate structures within a cell.
So we've got these amazing macromolecules, the raw ingredients of life.
Right.
But how do they go from just being individual molecules to forming the complex functional structures we see inside a cell?
That's where things get really mind-boggling.
Okay.
You see, it all comes down to shape.
Shape.
Yeah, the specific three-dimensional structure of a macromolecule dictates its function. It's like architecture on a molecular scale.
Okay, so we're talking form follows function, but at the tiniest level imaginable. Give me an example. How does shape play out in the real world of the cell?
Let's take proteins as a prime example. Remember how we talked about them being like the builders and messengers of the cell?
Yeah.
Well, a protein's ability to do its job depends entirely on its unique 3D shape.
I'm picturing those intricate origami animals where one fold can completely change the final form.
Yeah.
Is it something like that?
That's a great analogy. Imagine a long chain of paper clips all linked together.
Okay.
That's kind of like the basic structure of a protein, a chain of amino acids.
Okay.
But instead of just staying in a straight line, this chain folds and twists upon itself, forming a complex three-dimensional structure.
And those twists and folds aren't random, are they?
Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
The exact sequence of amino acids in the chain determines how the protein will fold. It's like a choreographed dance,
Wow.
with each amino acid following specific steps to create the final, perfectly formed protein.
So if even one amino acid is out of place, it could mess up the entire fold, right?
Exactly. Even a tiny change in the sequence can lead to a misfolded protein,
Oh.
which can have disastrous consequences for the cell. Think of it like a key that no longer fits into a lock. If a protein's shape is wrong, it simply can't do its job.
That's incredible. It's like each protein is a tiny, perfectly sculpted machine, and even the slightest flaw can throw a wrench into the works.
It's true.
Now, what about lipids? We talked about them forming cell membranes. How does shape come into play there?
Lipids and their amazing shapes. Remember how we talked about them being like oil and water, how they naturally separate?
Yeah.
Well, that's because of their unique structure.
Okay, remind me about that oil and water analogy again. I remember it had something to do with being hydrophobic and hydrophilic.
Right. Lipids have what we call a head that's attracted to water. That's the hydrophilic part. And a tail that repels water, the hydrophobic part.
Right.
So when you put lipids in a watery environment, those hydrophobic tails cluster together, trying to get away from the water.
While the hydrophilic heads face outwards, interacting with the water.
So it's like they naturally arrange themselves to create a barrier?
Exactly, and that's how cell membranes are formed.
Wow.
It's a double layer of lipids with those hydrophobic tails sandwiched in the middle,
Okay.
and the hydrophilic heads facing outwards towards the watery environments both inside and outside of the cell.
Okay.
This creates a stable, flexible barrier that controls what can enter and exit the cell.
It's amazing how this simple concept of water-loving and water-fearing parts can lead to such an elegant and essential structure.
I know, right?
It really highlights how important shape is at this microscopic level.
Absolutely. And speaking of structure, we've talked about individual macromolecules, but cells are far more organized than just a jumble of these molecules floating around.
Right.
They're like bustling cities
Okay.
with different departments all working together in a highly coordinated way.
Okay, I love where this is going. Tell me more about these cellular cities. What are these departments you mentioned?
We call them organelles. Organelles.
These are distinct structures within the cell, each with its own specialized function. Think of it like this. In a city, you have power plants for generating energy, factories for producing goods, and a transportation system for moving things around. Cells have organelles that perform these same types of functions.
So it's like a city, but on a microscopic scale. That's incredible. What kind of organelles are we talking about here? Give me some examples of these cellular departments.
Well, no city would be complete without a reliable source of energy, right?
Right.
That's where mitochondria come in. They're often called the powerhouses of the cell because they're responsible for producing a molecule called ATP, which is the primary energy currency of cells.
Mitochondria, the powerhouses. That rings a bell from biology class. But I need a refresher. How do they actually generate all that energy?
It's a fascinating process called cellular respiration.
Right.
But what's really cool is that the structure of mitochondria is perfectly suited for this task.
Okay, I have a feeling you're going to tell me it's all about those folds again, right?
You know me too well. Mitochondria have a smooth outer membrane,
Okay.
but their inner membrane is highly folded. These folds, called cristae, dramatically increase the surface area available for the complex chain of reactions that make up cellular respiration.
So more folds, more surface area, more energy production. It's like maximizing the workspace within each tiny mitochondrion.
Exactly.
Are there any other organelles with this form follows function story?
Oh, absolutely. Take chloroplasts, for example.
Yeah, okay.
These are the organelles found in plant cells and algae that capture light energy and convert it into chemical energy through photosynthesis.
Photosynthesis, the process that makes life on Earth possible. I remember learning about it, but how does the structure of chloroplasts make this amazing process possible?
Chloroplasts are like tiny solar panels,
Okay,
packed with a green pigment called chlorophyll that captures light energy.
right.
But it's not just about the pigment. The structure is key here as well.
All right. I'm intrigued. What's so special about the structure?
Well, inside the chloroplast, you have these stacks of disc-shaped sacs called thylakoids.
Oh.
Each thylakoid is like a little compartment where the light-dependent reactions of photosynthesis take place.
Wow.
These stacks increase the surface area for light absorption, making the process much more efficient.
So just like with the mitochondria, it's all about maximizing surface area to get the job done. It's incredible how these tiny organelles are like miniature factories, each with its own specialized design.
Precisely. And it gets even more interesting when we compare different types of cells,
Oh.
because not all cells are created equal.
Okay, I'm sensing another analogy coming on. Lay it on me. What are these different types of cells? Okay, I'm all ears. Hit me with this analogy. What are these different types of cells?
All right, picture this. Imagine the simplest cells, prokaryotic cells, as those, what are they called? Those ultra-efficient tiny homes you see popping up these days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they've got everything they need, but in a compact, no-frills kind of way.
So we're talking minimalists of the cell world. What comes to mind are bacteria, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Bacteria are the classic example of prokaryotes.
Okay.
They've got DNA, of course, but it's not neatly packaged inside a nucleus, like in more complex cells.
Interesting. So it's less like a home office and more like having blueprints spread out on the kitchen table.
Perfect analogy. Now let's compare that to eukaryotic cells.
Okay.
Think of them as those sprawling mansions with dedicated rooms for everything, a library, a kitchen, multiple bedrooms.
Nice.
That's what having membrane-bound organelles is like.
So are you saying that plants and animals are made up of these more elaborate eukaryotic cells?
That's right. And that organizational complexity is what allows them to do so much more.
Okay.
Eukaryotic cells, with their specialized compartments, can carry out a wider variety of tasks, leading to the incredible diversity we see in the plant and animal kingdoms.
Wow, that makes perfect sense. Okay, so we've gone from simple building blocks to complex structures, but I'm still trying to wrap my head around something. How does the DNA, tucked away inside the cell, actually direct all this activity? It's like having a library full of blueprints, but how are those blueprints actually put to use?
It's one of the most fundamental questions in biology.
Right.
And the answer is a beautifully elegant process called protein synthesis.
Protein synthesis?
Yeah, it involves a fascinating interplay between DNA, RNA, and those remarkable protein-building machines we call ribosomes.
Okay, break it down for me. How does this cellular dance routine actually work?
Think of it this way. The DNA, with its precious genetic code, is kept safe and sound inside the nucleus.
Okay.
But we need a way to get those instructions out to the rest of the cell where the real action is. That's where RNA comes in, specifically messenger RNA or mRNA.
So mRNA is like the courier, carrying those vital blueprints out of the nucleus.
Exactly. It's like making a photocopy of those important blueprints before sending them out to the construction site. This process of creating mRNA from DNA is called transcription.
Transcription.
Then the mRNA molecule carries the genetic code out of the nucleus into the cytoplasm, where those amazing ribosomes are waiting.
And ribosomes are, remind me again, what exactly?
Ribosomes are the protein factories of the cell.
Okay.
They take the instructions encoded in mRNA and use them to assemble amino acids, the building blocks of proteins, in the correct order.
So the mRNA acts like the instruction manual, and the ribosomes are the skilled workers, reading those instructions and putting the proteins together piece by piece.
A perfect analogy. This process of reading the mRNA code and building a protein is called translation.
Translation.
All right.
Wow, it's amazing how everything is connected. We started with the simple building blocks of life, explored the intricate structures within a cell, and now we see how DNA directs all this activity through this elegant process of protein synthesis.
And it's all happening inside you right now, in trillions of cells, every second of the day, It's truly mind-boggling, and we've only just scratched the surface.
That's the beauty of a deep dive like this. We uncover more layers of complexity and wonder the deeper we go.
Absolutely.
I feel like we've just completed a crash course in Cell Biology 101, but more importantly, we've gained a new appreciation for the intricate symphony of life playing out in every one of our cells.
And that's something I hope you carry with you long after this deep dive is over.
Yeah.
The next time you take a breath, eat a meal, or simply move your hand, remember the incredible microscopic world within you that makes it all possible.
Beautifully put, well, listeners. That brings us to the end of our journey into the fascinating world of cells. But remember, this is just the beginning. We encourage you to keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never stop being amazed by the wonders of science.
Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.